It's been several months now since I've gotten my 8-inch RASA. So what do I think of it today? How's it held up? Will I trade again? Are there any pitfalls to owning an 8-inch RASA? What challenges could you face owning an 8-inch RASA? Was Scooby Snacks really secret code word for marijuana on Scooby-Doo? Several of you have asked me what is my current take on the RASA and do I still think it's the bomb? Well, I have been witness to and I've enjoyed several head-scratching moments with the RASA. Some are more troublesome than others, while few are just part of the hobby. But to you, Mr. and Mrs. Future Buyer, here is my top 10 most challenging things owning a 8-inch RASA. 10! I had to have it replaced as soon as I got it. Really. I wasn't sure if the mirror was bad out of the box or if the Celestron focuser that I installed on it caused the issue. Basically, if you saw my first videos on it, the whole star field was smeared all over the place and there was donuts everywhere. It's like a Dunkin' Donut exploded. All I know is that I had some seriously funky star shapes that wouldn't go away. Apparently, I wasn't the only recipient of a scope like this. It was reported by a few people. And at least the distributors and Celestron made good by immediately replacing them. Still though, it kind of sucks to have to return a new scope, doesn't it? Now, does this mean that they all are going to be like this? Chances are no. It did seem to be isolated, and I'm sure it could happen to any scope, and let's be serious, everyone throughout your astro hobby, you're going to get one freaking item that doesn't work right. Remember how I said the focuser may have caused the issue? Yeah, I'm still a little skeptical of this little gem. The fact is that I've taken it off and I sold it. After all, there was a 50% chance that the focuser was what caused the mirror to shift and have oblong stars all over the field. I really didn't want that to happen again. Also, the fact that the focuser was loud, and you can never really get it close to focus anyway. Of course, the mirror was shifted, so maybe that helped. But loud. I mean, it's like a pig humping a whale or something. It didn't sound right. And also I had trouble calibrating for some reason. But again, this could have been due to the mirror. So maybe I haven't given the focuser a fair shake, but I'm just not convinced and honestly think they're still a little buggy. Now, I've heard that the latest releases, there have been some considered improvements upon them, especially with the software. And I've talked to a few people who said they have liked them and they're doing well with them, while others have just said no. Of course, you could build your own Arduino-based focuser, like if you had time and, knew how to do that. I don't. My solution was to use a regular old Botnov mask over the top of my dew shield. And you know what? It works perfectly. Yeah, I know. Someone's going to say you have to focus every hour and every 3.5 degrees of change and blah, 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 blah. Now, it might be, if you're constantly changing filters, you are going to have to focus. But, how the hell do you think people did it before the invent of autofocusers? Back in my day, I walked 10 miles to pull a filter in my... Shut up! You're doing it wrong! In one of the previous videos going over the RASA, I mentioned the stupid glass in the front. Yeah, that was very much a pain in the ass, and I have heard many peeps talking about having to use their special little tools to get theirs off. It does appear, though, that Celestron paid some attention to this in the beginning, because I'm hearing more people say that they have received theirs and they're even a little loose now. Listen, you really listen! Now, the thing to remember here is that if you are replacing the glass or reinstalling or changing out to a light pollution filter, remember is to not over-tighten it. Finger tight is fine. As long as we're on this subject, it does kind of suck that the manufacturer made their own light pollution filter. Not that that sucks, but the fact that it is specially mounted. So you could only buy theirs, use theirs, and you can't just use a standard 2-inch light pollution filter if you're shooting one shot color with it. Yeah, they're making more money, but that sucks for you and your... Correct setup. If I could tell you or show you how maddening it is to find the right setup for your scope, you would never... Oh, wait, you probably do know what that feels like. Dude, seriously, I swear, I change my setup around almost as often as I change razors. Kind of liking this look. What do you guys think? Trying to find that sweet spot for all your gear on top or on the side is really a And if you are going to mount anything on top, like say a guide scope, you're going to have to get the Celestron bar to go on the top of it. There isn't any other manufacturers yet who have released their own versions of it, though I'm sure it's going to come if it hasn't already came as the time of this video being published. Weight always plays into the equation and balance can change. The fact that it's so large and sits up on top of the way it does, the center of gravity is completely different than what you would say find on a refractor. So trying to find that ultimate balance point can be difficult sometimes, and you seem like you're juggling constantly every time you go to set up. Remember how I told you in the past that I would set up my refractor before I went outside and just put it on the mount?
I build my scopes up inside before I bring them out and put them up on the saddles.
Not so with the RASA. It's mount, RASA, accessory. Swear to God, it takes longer for me to get ready to astro image than it does for a teenage girl at prom night. It's stuff. Camera fit. You can be tight on this one. Not every camera fits, especially if you're considering using filters for LRGB or narrowband. That and maintaining your correct back focus. You're actually kind of locked into a draw manufacturer right now, and they can charge a pretty hefty price for you, especially if you're just putting a little knob on something. Of course, that was in the beginning, but now that the 8-inch RASA craze has taken off, they're not the only game in town. In fact, Bader has also released their own system for the RASA, and there is another manufacturer who is also in development. The key here is the back focus spacing. That's where you have the issues. Of course, if you're not worrying about filter usage and you're just going to stick that one-shot color, it's probably going to be a little bit easier for you. However, again, you have to check on your back focus distance, which means sometimes you don't always get the exact spacer you need. You have to be inventive and combine different things in order to make it happen. Honestly, I think ASI here has got the upper hand over everybody just because of the way their cameras are mounted. You can forget about using the DSLR on an 8-inch RASA. 11-inch, you can do it. 8-inch, can't do it. Of course, you could also consider a mirrorless camera, but it kind of sucks if you don't have one of those. You know, talking about spacers and everything, you also have to talk about other accessories. And there is not a lot of accessories that are available right now off the bat for an 8-inch RASA. This goes back to your filter drawers, it goes to your top rail, it goes to your cameras, even filters, and of course focusers. What this means is that those that do supply can charge whatever they want. Now hopefully this will balance itself out as more 8-inch RASAs hit the market and more manufacturers open up towards R&D to get their accessories out the door to be competitive. Prices will eventually start to drop and you will get more choices. And honestly, that's the big enchilada! Having choices. Always having choices. Which one should I wear to my cousin's wedding? Fast filters. Right now, there's a limited number of manufacturers that actually supply F2 filters. Like, I think literally one manufacturer right now. And they don't even print what their filters will do. If you believe the hype, and there is some science involved that supports this fact, you should be using filters designed for F2. Using a slower filter shifts the wavelength of light, and basically in a nutshell, you're losing data. So you're no longer shooting F2, you might be shooting F3, 4, 5, it just depends on who you listen to. Like a Lambo or a Ferrari, and you blow it down and you're only driving the speed limit. Might as well not even be driving. Now there are some workarounds. You could use 12 nanometer filters and they will work. I know from experience because I've used them before I could afford the Baders. But can a layman tell the difference? Probably not, but sure as FUD, some know-it-all on Astrobin is going to call you out on it and say, you didn't use F2 filters. Then again, honestly, you could use any old filter and still get results. I mean, results is results. This is probably the reason why I went back to one-shot color and L-enhanced filter. I noticed a couple of weeks ago while I was out shooting the Bubble Nebula that I had oblong stars again in one of my upper corners of my photo. Now my scope has been moved from one location to another and it was well protected in its original packaging. I even took great care to make sure that the movers did not get their hands on it. But it seems that with some jarring, the mirror deflects just a little. I tried a quick experiment by running the mirror all the way in and then took it back out to focus before I switched targets and went on to the Pleiades. And apparently it solved the issue. So this is something to keep in mind. Remember, the first RASA I had oblongs all over the field, and it was ridiculous. It would literally look like the mirror had been completely twisted. Celestron never reported exactly what the problem was, though they immediately replaced it with a new one, which was fine, and it's worked perfect ever since, except for after the move. So there appears to be some sort of a design flaw here, that if you get it jarred a little bit, maybe the mirror will kink out one way or the other. Again, this seems to be solved just by running it all the way in and then back out to focus again. And that seemed to have handled it, and I haven't seen an issue with it as of yet. But I am still hearing people on the webs that are talking about this happening. I mean, they made the 11-inch RASA with mirror locks, and the 36, of course. So, and even their SCT edges, they have mirror locks. So I'm wondering, why didn't they go this route on a dedicated astrograph? There's even holes there for them. Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking. This isn't exactly the kind of scope that you just throw in the case and take to exotic lands in order to shoot photos. Find one, and count them, one solution, which was a large carrier about the size of a golf ball bag, or golf bag size of a golf bag, and had wheels on it, and it was huge and bulky. So if you're going to throw that into your trunk, it doesn't leave room for a lot of anything else. We've reached number 1 on our top 10 countdown. This one goes out to a special little guy in Seattle that is always reaching for the stars. Number 1 for the 10th week in a row, it's Paul McCartney's with, what exposure length do I use? Okay, it took me a long time to figure out basic exposure times on a refractor while I was in the field. I mean, sure, you can check with the CCD calculators for best exposure times, and you can load them into programs that will spit out how long you should be using them for, but you got to buy those kind of things, right? So if you don't already own those kind of programs that tell you that, you're kind of in a guessing game here. Famous cloudy nights charts were a huge help with the ASI 1600, and it gave you a basis to work off of when using a refractor. But the RASA is a completely different animal. So far, nobody's developed a cool little chart to throw on cloudy nights for all of us to revert back to. Again, it is going to change depending on what border sky you're in, as well as what you're shooting, what the target is, how bright, yada, yada, yada. Best method, of course, is to just look at your ADU, and even easier is to just look at your histogram. A third from the left, and most amateurs are happy. But sometimes the RASA is so fast on some targets that this does not always apply. There's a lot to think about, not only including how you're oversampling or undersampling, but the light pollution you have to take into effect is you basically have a huge light bucket just sucking up any photon within a million square miles. Like millions, billions of miles. But the workaround is I still rely on the histogram method. It's the best way I know in order to figure out how long my exposure needs to be. But again, it can come back with some diminished returns. You never really know how many you're going to need. You just kind of eyeball it. What do you do if it's raining and you can't astro image? Watch more YouTube, of course. Check out my friend from the Charlie Elliott Astronomy Club, Amy Astro, on YouTube. Her link will be in the description. She's got some great content that's up there, and she would certainly appreciate your support.